Alright, y'all. Here's my Ishizu tier list. I know you've probably seen a million of them by now, but here's the one I'm running. We're going to go ahead and get into it. So first off, we got the one Herald of Orange Light. This card's amazing. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can send this card and one other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation if you do destroy it. Some people are also running the one green light that stops spell cards. I personally haven't found it super useful at this point, so I'm just running one orange. 3 max C because we really want to see it. If we end up going second, we need all the cards we can get to hopefully out their tier board, because playing second into tier can be difficult sometimes. And even playing first into tier, if it's the mirror match and you don't know it's the mirror match and you mill your opponent, can be difficult as well. So next we have 2 tier elements, Murray or Merly. When it's normal or special, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the grave. This card's sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step. You can fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion monsters mentioned on it from your hand, field, and grave, including this card from your deck on the bottom of your deck in any order. You can only use each effect of tier elements merely once per turn. So typically you don't really want to necessarily normal summon this for its effect unless you're really desperate. One of the things you can do that's fun is, because this is a level 2, you can special summon it during your opponent's turn with Elf and use the effect. Most of the time I just use the fusion effect off this, but it is sometimes useful to do the mill effect with it. Next we have 3 King of the Swamp. This card is ancient, but it is very, very, very useful in this deck. So this card in your hand, field, or graveyard can be substituted as any one fusion material whose name is mentioned on a fusion monster card, but the other materials must be correct. You can discard this card and add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. You probably won't use the discard poly effect very much, but the effect to substitute is amazing, and when you mill this and it's in your grave and you can just shuffle it back for the graveyard effect, it's crazy good. Sometimes if you do want the fusion as an extender and you know you're going to send it back anyway, you might as well discard it, add the fusion, then send it back, because it's going to go back into the deck anyway. Next we have 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. You're definitely going to need this card. It is good during the mirror sometimes. If they're really desperate, only have 1 play, you can just kind of shut it off. So Ash, always good. Definitely want to run 3 copies to see it. Next we have Tier Elements of Honest. This has actually been my favorite of the tier cards. I know other people prefer Reno Heart, but I really like Havanas. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can special summon it from your hand, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon fusion monster from your extra deck. And it's the same deal where you take the monsters in your hand, field, or grave and shuffle them. Well, not shuffle them back, but put them on the bottom of the deck in any order. You can only use each effect of Havanas once per turn. Next, we have 1 Shadal Squamata. The fact that it's 1800 attack has actually been useful in the past to beat over weak things. The fact that it's a flip, target 1, destroy, has also actually been useful in the past to out certain things. But the effect we're going to use it most of the time is if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send a Shadal card from your deck to the grave, except Squamata. You can only use 1 Shadal Squamata effect per turn, only once that turn. So most of the time we use that effect to send Beast. Beast, when it's sent to the grave, lets you draw 1 card. And when it's flipped, you probably won't use the flip effect. I have resolved it once. You can draw 2 cards and then discard 1 card. But most of the time it's just going to go to the grave and you're going to get the card. Next we have 2 Tier Element Shreen. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you do, send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard if this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, except during the damage step, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck, placing fusion monsters on it on the bottom of your deck from your hand, field, or graveyard in any order. You can only use each effect of Tier Element Shreen once per turn. I really like this one. I'm gonna take it back. I still like Ivana's better, but this one is incredibly useful. Just because you can send another tier card, and then you will be able to get the fusion effect from that. You can also send one of the Ishizu cards and get the mill effect from that. So really useful. Next, we have 3 Reno Hearts. Be normal or special summoned. You can send 1 tier monster from your deck to the grave, except Reno Heart. If this card's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon it, banish it when it leaves the field. If you do, send 1 tier elements card from your hand to the graveyard. You can only use each effect once per turn. And then we have 2 Keldo, 2 Medora, 2 Kelbeck, 2 YuGiOh. So Keldo, you can discard 1 other Earth Fairy, special summon it from your hand, add an exchange for the spirit or 1 card that mentions it. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, target up to 3 cards in the graveyard or 5 if exchange for the spirit is on your field or in your graveyard. Shuffle them into the deck. The reason this is good is because if your opponent activates the effect to fuse from their grave in the mirror, you can chain this, shuffle their cards back, and they won't be able to fuse because they won't have anything to fuse in the grave. Medora is discard an Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand. Then you can place 1 Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap card zone. Quick effect does the same banish effect, target 3 cards in the graveyard, shuffle them back, be either graveyard, and you can do up to 5 if exchange of the spirit is on your field or in the graveyard. And then next we have Kelbeck. If a card or cards is sent from your hand or deck, if card or card is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, you can target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls. Special summon this card from your hand, return that monster to the hand. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard or their entire deck of less than 5. If exchange of the spirit is in your graveyard, you can set 1 trap from your graveyard. You can only use each effect for Kelbeck the Ancient Vanguard once per turn. Then YuGiOh is if a card or cards is sent from your hand or deck to the opponent's graveyard. Card sent from the hand or deck to the opponent's graveyard. You can special summon this card from your hand, then special summon 1 Earth Fairy monster from your graveyard, except YuGiOh. I haven't used that one too much. If this card sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect. Each player sends the top 5 cards of their deck to the grave. Entire deck of less than 5. If exchange of the spirit is in the graveyard, you can send 5 more cards from the top of either player's deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of YuGiOh the Ancient Sentinel once per turn. And then we have 1 Shaddoll Beast. We already covered his effect. 1 Polymerization. 1 Foolish Burial. Pretty much lets you instantly get any of your tier effects. 1 Terraforming. 1 Primeval Planet Perlino. When this card is activated, you can add a tier elements monster or Visa Starfrost monster from your deck to your hand. Fusion monsters and tier element monsters you control gain 500 attack. If a tier elements monster you control or is in your graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, except during the damage step, you can target 1 card in the field and destroy it. You can only use it once. You can only use this effect for Primeval Planet Perlino once per turn. You can only activate 1 of that card per turn. Next we have 3 tier element Scream. This card is amazing. If a monster is normal or special summoned and you control tier elements or a Visa Starfrost monster, except during the damage step, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Also, for the rest of the turn, all monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, like when you mill it, you can add 1 tier elements trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of tier element Scream once per turn. 2 Super Poly. 1 exchange of the spirit. If both players have 15 or more cards in their graveyard, pay 1,000 life points. Each player swaps the cards in the graveyard with the cards in their deck, then shuffles their deck. You can only activate 1 exchange of spirit per turn. I only resolved this once, but when I did, it won me the game. Tier elements Crime. When a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated while you control a tier elements or Visa Starfrost, negate the activation, and if you do, shuffle that card into the deck. Then send 1 monster from your hand the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target 1 of your banished tier elements monsters, add it to your hand. You can only use one Tier Element's Crime effect per turn, and only once that turn. And then finally, one Tier Element Sulik. If you control a Tier Elements or Beast of Starfrost monster, you can target one effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effect, then send one monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add one Tier Elements monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect for Tier Element Sulik once per turn. And then for the extra deck, we got Mud Dragon in the Swamp, Shaddoll Winda. So Winda is amazing. Must first be fusion summoned. Can't be destroyed by an opponent's card effect. Each player can only special summon monsters once per turn while this card is face up on the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Shaddoll Spell or Trap card in your hand and add it to your hand. Sorry, one Spell or Trap card in your grave, add it to your hand. You're not going to use that last effect, but Winda is MVP. Making Winda and locking my opponent out of summoning more than once per turn than Mirror has led to several wins. You definitely want to run this card. One Kit Kalos is one Tier Elements plus one Aqua. If it's special summoned, you can take a Tier Elements card from your deck, add it to your hand, or send it to the grave. You can target one monster you control, special summon a Tier Elements monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, send the targeted monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Kit Kalos once per turn. So using Kit Kalos to send itself, special something else, that has been pretty good. Next we have one Predaplant Dragostapelia. So you should be familiar with this one by now, but if you're not, it's a fusion monster and a dark monster. Once per turn, quick effect, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, put a Predaplant counter on it. If its level is 2 or higher, it beats level becomes 1, as long as it has a Preda counter. Negate the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that have Preda counters. This is a great instant fusion target. I've also just used Poly for it once, but in general it's good. One Mirror Jade, this is pretty easy to make because you have the Lubellion and you also have the King of the Swamp because it's specifically listed. So like you can normal summon King if you wanted and activate Super Poly and just go off with your opponent's board. I've actually done that once. It's been pretty funny. You can also easily polymerization it off of King of the Swamp and just any fusion. Next we have Tier Elements Written Kalos, or winner 1. It is Kit Kalos plus 1 Tier Elements monster. King of the Swamp comes in handy for this as well. Other Aqua monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. When your opponent activates a card that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, quick effect, you can negate the activation, destroy it, send a Tier Elements card from your hand or face up field to the grave. If this card is fusion summon card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can special summon it. I am running 2 Tier Elements Kaleido Heart. This card is awesome. It's Rhino Heart plus 2 Aqua monsters. Can't be used as fusion material. If this card is special summoned or an Aqua monster is sent to your graveyard by a card effect while it's on the field, you can target one card your opponent controls, shuffle it into the deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card. If you do, send one Tier Elements card from your deck to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Kaleido Heart once per turn. One Baron to floor, one Gigantic Sprite, one Abyss Dweller, one number 41 Baguska. This has actually won me a couple games. One Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, and one Sprite Elf for that combo ability with Merly. And that's it for the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.